Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. I'm your host Marty, and don't adjust your screens or the device that you're listening to. This is real. Beside me tonight I have Dave.
Hello.
John.
Hello.
And Aaron.
Yay!
We have a full panel tonight. This is unusual. I've been thinking about this day quite a long time. It's been literally, I think, the last time the four of us were together was the first week of September, the first league week of September. We're now on the final league week of the whole entire league, and you're back. Everyone's here. So
we just like to bookend the season, start on a high, end on a high.
That's it. And we are ending our episode. We are ending our league campaign on a big high. Because we should say from the top, just right from the get go, we are here to celebrate the reigning, defending, back to back Viaplay Elite League champions, the Belfast Giants. This past weekend, the Belfast Giants secured the Elite League title, beating the Guildford Flames. And I think, Dave, we were both there, and I know boys you were watching it at home through Viaplay Extra or whatever it was. I think we were all expecting, I suppose, maybe a closer fight, a closer tight game on this past Saturday night, but it just didn't come.
Just very clinical, the whole game. It was unreal.
Giants dominated.
If you go by the tweets, the whole thing fell apart the next night.
Worst thing ever.
Or you could ask me, seeing as I was there.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
we will get to that. We'll get there in a second. Let's continue with our celebrations of the night itself. I would say, Dave, you were there with me on the night. It was probably the quietest I've ever been on a championship night. Unbeknownst at that point, whenever I was at the game on Saturday night, I was in basically the middle of having a really bad tonsillitis, to the point then where I ended up on 2 antibiotics after the game, pretty much over. I was on antibiotic originally already at the game because I couldn't drink, and then I had to get a second one then after the weekend. I was in an awful state. I couldn't cheer, I couldn't yell, I could barely speak to Dave. Like, I was trying to talk to Dave.
Do you know what you did? You turned up for the team.
Indeed, I did, and I'm here today talking already. I'm here today talking on the episode, so I can put my joy into that. And we have a lot to talk about in this episode, not just about the game that was just passed, but also I know there's a topic coming up later on in the podcast that we're all very excited about, because that is the playoff hockey, which is starting this coming weekend, so we will talk about that too. Let's just have a quick look at the standings, just a final rundown of how the league ended for us here in the Viaplay Elite League. Obviously taking the top spot was the Belfast Giants, winning the championship for the third time in a row, having played 54 games and 84 points. Guildford Flames then came second, and they were worthy second place, having a fantastic season overall. 54 games played, 82 points. Sheffield Steelers ended third with 77 points. Cardiff Devils ended fourth for 75 points. Coventry Blaze ended fifth with 72 points. Manchester Storm came in sixth with 48 points. Massive gap there between 5 and 6. We'll talk about that in a second. Nottingham Panthers came in seventh with 47 points, and the Glasgow Clan took the last playoff spot in 8th place, having started pretty much 3 months later than everyone else, but still being better than all the rest of the Scottish teams. 8th place there with 35 points. The Five Flyers were in ninth with 34 points, and the Dundee Stars unfortunately ended in 10th place with 31 points. Boys, it was a fantastic run for this season. We've talked about it throughout the podcast, different stages of this season. And with having various people on, we haven't obviously all been together. But for a season itself, how would you sum that up? John, let's go with you first.
Season highs and lows. Let's be totally honest. You go back half a dozen podcasts, probably more at this point actually. Go back to before Christmas, and we saw a Belfast Giants team that were struggling to scrape wins. We saw a double-header weekend against Manchester where it was a complete wipeout, and it looked like game over at that point. And I'm pretty sure on more than one occasion you'll find at least me on this podcast having said, that's it, it's now all about the Challenge Cup and playoffs. Did not see a league win coming, if I'm totally honest. And it was only in the last month, I think, I really started to believe as the Giants started to claw back, and really unfortunately, as the Guildford Flames started to lose games after Christmas, that was when it became a reality, because I thought it was a 2-horse race between Guildford and Sheffield, and both of them seemed to hit a wall after Christmas. It was unbelievable. So it's definitely been a season of highs and lows for a Belfast Giants fan. When you look across the table, though, there is a stark cliff edge with the top of the league and the bottom of the league. And even in the bottom of the league, there is the bottom of the league, and then there's the bottom of the league as well. And unfortunately, it's 2 of the 3 Scottish teams who are sitting pan flat at the bottom. I think that's the second year in a row that these 2 teams have missed out on playoffs. I think it's Fife and Dundee that have both missed out 2 years running. Not 100% on that. Someone will probably correct me in a really angry tweet. Probably a Dundee or a Fife fan. But yeah, it is stark with those teams. But do you know what? I might be sitting here in Fife, but I don't care. The Belfast Giants are champions.
Yeah, Dave, John has been very honest there about his opinions in relation to his thoughts and opinions in terms of like his doubts certain parts of the season. I mean, overall, how about you? How would you sum up the season in terms of how it went?
It was definitely. I think everyone would agree that it was a tough season for all teams. I think there was so much sort of play in like who. There was no sort of no runaway victories. A lot of big games, but one night you would thump a team, and then the next night they come back and beat you, and it was just that was the entire year. It was just every team taking points off every team. Obviously, you can see it in the points that didn't happen throughout it, but it's amazing how much the Giants changed after what Scott Conway said on the awards night after they got rid of some dead weight. They really changed the team and the season, and it can be really. It was really telling, especially when you watch that game, the title winning game. The Giants playing then was so clinical. Their power play goals they got were phenomenal, and they were drilled. They weren't individual efforts. We did have those, but there was just so many set pieces that went really well, and that comes from entire buy-in from the top to the bottom. With Kiefer designing the drills, and then the leadership in the team buying into them, and then the players executing them. So I think when it came to the end, I think it really did come down to just the quality from top to bottom in that Giants team.
I couldn't agree more. I think you're spot on with that. And Aaron, how about yourself? I mean, in terms of obviously what Dave and John have kind of echoed quite similar in terms of the change of form and stuff, especially coming into the second half of the season and the kind of the certain changes that happen. I mean, what's your take overall in terms of summarising the season itself?
I think we've talked about this quite a few times, and it is really just echoing what Dave and John have said, just in a different way. You never know what's going to happen. Realistically, you just don't know what's going to happen. Do we, John or Dave? You kind of hinted at this as well as something that was said at the award night. Is it the dead weight and Bisco coming in that was the turning point here?
Well, this is the question I was going to ask. So this is the next question. No, it's okay. You're reading my notes. It's okay. I'm always glad to know that you're always on the same page. It's good to know because it knows I'm on the same question. My question was going to be, and it's an open question for any of you lads to answer. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk on Twitter. There's been a lot of talk on social media. Been a lot of, we'll say sour grapes. We'll call it sour grapes. We're Belfast Giants fans, so we're gloating at the moment because obviously we're massive fans of Belfast Giants. We're happy that we won and everything else.
So we're winners.
But here's the question I want to ask. Taking off your Belfast Giants hats, so taking those hats off in terms of taking away everything and trying to be non-biased as much as possible, okay? John's putting on a Belfast Giants hat, thanks. You're taking it off, great. That was a great visual there on the visual podcast. We've seen a lot of people complaining, we'll say complaining because, yeah, they're complaining, but we've seen a lot of people saying that the Giants this year bought the league. Okay, we'll say bought the league in inverted commas. We've seen that the Belfast Giants were one of the teams this year to make changes when changes were needed. They seen that there was an issue We've seen there was concerns and areas around play. They got rid of 4 players, I want to say altogether. Well, they officially parted ways, I think, with 2, but I think there's 4 players in total who one kind of just disappeared, and no one has talked about him. No one has even mentioned that he's disappeared, which is an interesting story in itself because I don't know anything about it. But we know that one Brit player has just kind of came in, signed, played well, and then all of a sudden is gone. Like, nobody knows where it's just like, what's happened? It's just like, okay. And then we have we have 2 players who obviously were let go, and it was quite, there was quite an obvious thing that they were let go, in the middle of the season. And then we had a player who wasn't technically let go, but he decided to part ways with the Giants himself after Beskorowany was brought in. So my question really around it was, I mean, I personally didn't think that it was a significant number of players were purchased to be brought in. Did anybody else think that? I mean,
look, this was not the same things that we've seen done in the likes of Sheffield. You're talking about four or five moves, and really the people that we moved for, it's at least one of them a Brit from the NIHL. So you're talking about the sort of smart moves that were coming in to either replace moves out, which is completely allowed within the rules. Every team where they had the finances available, and I think you could look at the top 4, maybe top 5 teams, and they all, in fact, top 6 teams when you look at Manchester as well, they all made moves for players within the trading window, or within the signing window before the trade deadline. Most teams shed let's call it dead weight within their rosters at one point or another. So for any of the other 9 teams in the league to try and suggest in any way that the Giants have played checkbook hockey is just absolute nonsense, really. You look a few seasons ago, we saw Sheffield essentially had a revolving door, which is why we now have the signing rules that we have about roster changes, about injury reserves, and all the rest of it, because, let's be perfectly honest, a few teams were playing silly buggers with it, and the league have had to step in and make stipulations on in-season signings. So, that's where we are. Look, the rules changed, we've played within the rules, we won the championship, suck it up.
Yeah.
Get a bigger checkbook.
I personally, sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know I brought up the question saying, was it Besko that was the turning point? And I think that might be it's the easiest turning point to look at. But there are a lot of other players that came in and showed up well.
I would say, Besko was quality. He's definitely a quality player, a phenomenal netminder. I don't think it would have changed the result at the end of the season because Wyss was playing phenomenally before Besko came in. And, he didn't play for quite a bit, so we don't know whether there's something behind there. The Giants are very close-lipped about possible injuries or anything. But if he was healthy, we probably could have made a run with Wyss. I can't see there being any of the games that were tight that Wyss probably wouldn't. You wouldn't have been going, Wyss would never have won that game. I think probably would have been a good shout as well. It's the combination, I think, of signings that really worked.
Let's be totally honest as well. Let's throw some league stats at you. League leaders. League leader in points, Scott Conway with 90. Lead player with goals in the league, Scott Conway with 40. Save percentage, number 1 in the league, Tyler Beskorowany, 94.02 save percentage. Goals against average, lowest goals against average, Tyler Beskorowany, 1.45 goals against. Goals per game, Belfast Giants come top with 4.28. Goals against per game, 2.22. So, to be honest, goal scoring and a great goalie. We won because we did both of those remarkably well, and we did them both far better than every other team. Having that combination, and that combination, it's not individuals. Yes, Scott Conway and Tyler Beskorowany have excelled themselves, but they can't do everything. Tyler Beskorowany doesn't get a save percentage like that without a good defensive core standing in front of him. Scott Conway doesn't score 90 points 40 goals in a season without great whole team play coming up the ice and giving him the opportunity to play and make those shots and make those points. This is a whole team performance, I think. Yes, it's encapsulated within those two players, but this is probably, pound for pound, one of the best Belfast Giants teams I think has ever been put together.
100%. And there's players on this team, and it's very rare that I do this. It's very rare that by the end of the season I always try to kind of be more rational in the fact that, like, okay, well, whoever comes back I'm happy about. But this is the first year in a long time where I have a list of players sitting that if they don't come back, I am going to be gutted. Like, there's literally players on this list this year where I'm just like, he needs to come back. I need him back in my life. It is literally like players this year who have only come in towards the tail end of the season. And you're right, Aaron. Besco came in, and I think there's no argument. He's made a statement. He's come in and he's really given a bit of confidence to the team and everything else, and the fan base and everything else. And I agree with you. There's definitely no argument there. He has definitely done that. But there's other players, Dave, as you mentioned. You've got likes of Norris, who's been here pretty much most of the season, who's obviously, but Norris this last half of the season. I mean,
I love watching him.
If he doesn't get signed for a full contract next season, there is something wrong. McLeod, the brother McLeod, he is lightning fast. He is impressive. I'm in awe of him, and I just think if he doesn't come back, there's loads. Cooper. I mean, Alt Cooper.
Alt Cooper.
Yeah, Alt Cooper. I mean. Anyway, we're getting ahead of that because that'll be the question for the next podcast. Will be at the end of the playoffs, and we'll be checking to see who we want for the next season. So let's hold that.
Let's just be all check all.
Yeah. Here, listen, don't joke about that. If they do it, absolutely sign that whole squad back up again.
Guys, before we move on, let's just finish off our league chat before we move on to across the pond to the NHL. Obviously we were talking about the Giants win that championship game on the Saturday. John, you were there on the Sunday, and Aaron, as you mentioned, maybe the game didn't go so well for the Belfast Giants on the Sunday. But if anybody listened to Kiefer's post game interview, that was pretty telling stuff. So John, was it as good as what we were watching at home?
Absolutely, it was like watching the champions roll into town. Absolutely brilliant. And yeah,
did they literally roll them into town?
They might actually have. The funniest thing, I messaged you after this game in our group chat, and Dundee's weird because there's no defined away sections. When you go in, you just...
I was about to say, Dundee's is weird, but let's talk about hockey.
Yeah. You sit at centre ice, essentially, and kind of... You just have to find an empty seat. So I was surrounded by a couple of Giants fans, but a lot of Dundee fans. And as the goals started rolling, especially, unfortunately, as Dicko came in, the Stars saw an opportunity and they went out and out against Dicko. It was not a reflection on him at all, because I guarantee Dicko was probably feeling the celebrations from the night before as well. But the Stars and their fans kind of forgot for 60 minutes that they were in 10th place in the league with some of the worst percentages for the season, and honestly thought that at this point 50, 51, 52, 54 games in, that their team had finally come good and were beating the champions. I had to remind a few people that the very small roster that was iced were all probably still drunk. And they all... Look, if nothing else, the Dundee fans went home after their last game of this season very happy. So do you know what? The Giants win again for being great league team players. Given the 10th team... It was
a very cathartic...
Gracious.
It was a very cathartic experience for the Dundee Stars, obviously, for that last game. Obviously, that's what they needed. And actually, I think the post-game interview, we'll talk about Dundee at the start of period one, but post-game interview with with Mason, the post-game, he kind of alluded to that himself. He kind of said, this is the kind of what we needed. We kind of needed to send it. We were kind of glad to be able to send the fans home at the end of the season and with this win, and so that the last memory of the game of the season wasn't how bad of a season it was. So do you know the only thing I'm upset about that game? It's not the result. I couldn't care less about that result. It didn't really matter. It was a complete dead rubber for the Giants. I didn't realise the league trophy was in Dundee with the team that night.
and was on the team bus. So they were out with fans, letting them have a photo with the league trophy. Do you know what I did? I got in the car and I went home. Absolutely raging. It wasn't until I got back here and had a look on social media I realised that the trophy had been 30 yards behind me in the car park. So absolutely livid. How dare they not announce that that trophy was going to be there?
How dare they?
I'm going to take my tail glasses off for a little second. How dare I? And ask a question that you saw so many tweets about, which I think is absolutely insane, about how unsportly, how unsportsmanship it was that we didn't sleeve the celebrations until Sunday night to go for a game. Am I bonkers by thinking that's who thinks like that?
Do you know who I saw? Like, okay, so there is an argument on this, and I totally understand the people who were saying this. For one reason, the game on Sunday had the potential to be pivotal. It had the potential to be a league deciding game. For that reason, there was a bus of fans who made the journey from Belfast to Dundee on the off chance that, say, Guildford had beaten Belfast in Belfast the night before. The Giants would have had to win in Dundee to basically to guarantee the league, because on the tiebreaker the Giants would have won because of regulation wins. Guildford couldn't do anything about that. So, yes, I understand that those fans had paid for their bus, for their ferry, for their game tickets, and all the rest of it. I totally get that. Look, I paid for my game ticket as well, but I only had to drive down the road. I had to drive half an hour down the road to Dundee. That's totally fine for me. But I understand why those people expected more from the team.
Oh, I didn't hear it from. I didn't hear anything from our team or from our fans. I was reading tweets from other fan bases saying it wasn't.
Well, do you know what? Unless you're a Dundee fan who's on the other side of things and is absolutely raging that you didn't play the champions at their best, let's be honest, guys, that would have been a result flipped on its head. So maybe be a little bit more graceful about that. If you're any of the other 8 teams, mind your own business.
Yeah, I just like it's just suck it up. I mean, like of course you're gonna celebrate the championship win as soon as you can celebrate a championship win.
Come at us when you lift a trophy.
But
exactly.
On that,
Sorry, no other team in this league has lifted a trophy yet this season.
And also no other club in this league has lifted the elite championship as much as the Belfast Giants as well.
Yep, 6 times.
Put that in 13, 6 times. Just add that on. Anybody else for anything else before we move on to the NHL?
No, let's roll it.
No, okay. We'll move across the pond and just have a quick look at the NHL and the standings there. We have officially about 1 week left officially of the schedule for the NHL. So we're currently sitting, as of listening to this today, if you're listening to this on Friday, which will be the 7th of April, we have exactly 1 week left. The league is due to finish on the 14th of April, which is the last regular season games for the league. Majority of the places for this year's Stanley Cup, though, however, have been solidified. There's a couple of playoff spots cut through the wildcard spots, which are still up for grabs. So we will talk about those. So let's have a quick look. The main spots, as I say, have been all secured. So in the eastern side of the country, in the Metropolitan Division, all of the top 3 teams are Carolina, New Jersey, and New York Rangers, who have secured their spots into the playoff or to the Stanley Cup playoffs. In the Atlantic Division, Boston finished top there, followed by Toronto, and then Tampa Bay have also secured their spots. I should also note that Boston has also won, obviously, the conference as well there.
They won the President's Trophy as well.
Won the President's Trophy
won the league.
Yeah, correct. The wildcard spots currently held by Florida and the New York Islanders. Now, that could possibly change. Pittsburgh is still on a bit of a run there. The Florida and New York Islanders are both on 78 games played and 87 points, and Pittsburgh on 78 games played and 86 points. There is still a possibility for the Pittsburgh Penguins to move into one of those wildcard spots. We could also note, you could also say Buffalo and Ottawa are within a chance, but I would say that's probably least likely, given the fact that it's 81 points and 76 games played. So they do have 2 games to play in hand. However, I would say the likelihood is we're looking at the 3 top teams are Florida, New York Islanders, and Pittsburgh for those last wildcard spots.
So we're saying there's not a chance for the Flyers then?
What happened to this thing earlier in the season about this was the year, Aaron?
This was the year.
Awkward.
What are you doing wearing that hat?
Awkward.
I mean, honestly, you guys are delusional.
Moving over to the western side of the country then, Central Division is the same. 3 wildcard spots have been solidified there. Colorado, Dallas and Minnesota securing their spots and their places in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. Pacific Division, Vegas, Edmonton and Los Angeles have also secured their spots as well. Similarly, the wildcard spot is more to do with maybe only one spot really remaining there. Seattle kind of have a good educated guess and an argument that Seattle has secured their spot. They can clinch.
Seattle
correct.
can clinch tonight.
So Seattle can clinch tonight. So the only other spot that is available is that second spot, which is currently being held by Winnipeg, who've played 78 games and are on 89 points. And Calgary are in third place with 79 games played there and 89 points. However, Nashville are still sitting there in fourth. There is still a possibility, and John's probably sitting there being like, shaking his head or whatever. Oh, he's nodding. Okay, there is still an outside chance that Nashville could clinch that second wild card spot. They are on 77 games played and 86 points. So they have got a game in hand to bring them up to the 78 mark for the games played, like the majority of the rest of the league. And actually, they could do that, and also then if they win, I think their last 2 games then of part of that, and Winnipeg drops one, they could move into that last spot. So there is still an outside chance for Nashville to take a spot in the Stanley Cups. So we will have to wait and see.
The biggest one is that we have a game against who is it? We have a game against Calgary as well coming up in the last 6 that we have. We also have a game against the Wild, Dave. I mean, come on, you guys are already in. Could you give us a win?
Krill's back. He's getting ready for playoffs, so no.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to step aside for you, mate. That's the problem.
Exactly.
So the playoffs, if the playoffs were to start today, the playoff bracket, obviously we will look at the playoff bracket in more detail probably in our next episode, because obviously we'll know what the playoff bracket is at that point, and we can kind of get a bit of an idea in terms of what you kind of guys think in terms of who's going to do it and that sort of thing. We'll get an idea for your brackets and stuff leading into the playoffs. But at the moment, the playoff kind of if it was as of today, as it currently stands, the current playoff bracket would see Boston Bruins facing the New York Islanders, the Carolina Hurricanes would go up against the Florida Panthers, the Devils would take on the New York Rangers, which to me looks like a really enticing round. I think that's a really good bracket. Toronto Maple Leafs would take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round, and in the western side of things, Vegas would take on the Winnipeg Jets, Colorado would take on Seattle, Edmonton Oilers would be up against the Los Angeles Kings, and the Dallas Stars would take on the Minnesota Wild. So that's how it's looking at this time.
Dallas Wilds, I think that'd be a good one.
That would be another good one. I was thinking that as well.
Technically, we're the same jersey.
Actually, true. They came born of one came born of the other. Isn't that what it is?
I think you're right though, Marty. I think the most interesting one there would be the Battle of New York. I think that could be immense.
It looks like an interesting lineup. It definitely looks like an interesting playoff bracket. And I say it doesn't look like too many things. Obviously, what you just have to do is substitute out any of the teams who are kind of on that borderline, whether or not they'll be there or not. But it's an interesting. Definitely an interesting take to see how things are going to pan out, but as I say, we'll talk about that in more detail in our next episode. Guys, I think that's really it then as a roundup. Are we happy to move into our period 1?
That's good.
Let's do it.
Great, let's move into our period 1 of hockey. Okay, period 1 is a roundup of news stories from around the UK. We're going to lead with the story coming straight off the back of the end of the league run. Dundee Stars finishing in last place in the 10th place position. Didn't wait. There was no sitting around. They played on Sunday, and on Monday morning the announcement was made that Jeff Mason was being replaced as the head coach of the Dundee Stars, with the move that head coach, the new announcement that Mark Lefebvre would be coming back to the team after an absence. I think he's away at the time. I think correct. Is it correct? Was he in North America at the time, I think, or he's been past 6 seasons coaching in North America and in Europe. So he's returning to the Dundee Ice Arena after some time away. I mean, two things, I suppose, two questions that came out of this, and I kind of want to kind of get your thoughts on. Dave, I'm going to ask you the first question, and John, the second question is more direct towards you. Aaron, sorry, I didn't have a question for you, but maybe I'll come up with something before we finish this part. Dave, the first question that's come up with you was like, I mean, the announcement came quite quick. It was it wasn't like there's no waiting around. It was just like straight away, this is what's happened. Our season has turned out badly. This is what our result is. I mean, what's your take on that?
It's obviously been on the cards. That's my feeling, is that after they had the bad run, obviously the run's been bad for Dundee from, I don't know, most of the season.
September,
yeah. So I think that when the opportunity came for them to snap up Lefebvre, they've decided to go for it. The big thing is that he's sort of a proven entity in the Elite League. He's been thereabouts for quite a while. He spent a bit of time in the ECHL, getting a bit of sort of North America under his belt. Went to Denmark, went to France, and then back to Dundee. Hopefully, for the Dundee people out there, is he'll made some contacts, some friends in that wee jaunt around, and we might see some new faces in Dundee. And with the additional experience he's got, I can see there being a big change. Probably a bit of a shake-up. Probably want to put his own stamp back on the team. But here's hoping he gets more than a year.
Yep.
He needs to be given a wee bit more time. So.
John, obviously, obviously as David kind of highlighted about obviously it's obviously been in the works. There's obviously good aspects to possibly what going to come off this from in terms of where he's come from and kind of those back parts and stuff. We've seen Dundee move, and we've seen a lot of rumours and a lot of chat online about how this response is exactly what they wanted, what the fans in Dundee wanted to see. They wanted to see this quick response. They wanted to see that something was going to happen, because this is not acceptable for the way how the season went. There's also talk about whether other clubs and stuff should be taking a similar stance. We've talked about this previously, but what's your take? I mean, I'm sure you've seen it online as well.
Well, let me start. I'll give a bit of insider on the Dundee side of things as well. So when I was in Dundee, I was chatting to a couple of friends who are sort of hardcore Stars fans, and this was not the name that was being bandied around amongst fans. There was a name had been linked to the Stars, and it was another name that is known in Dundee but is currently a GM elsewhere in the league. There had been suspicions put round, clearly false suspicions put round, that Omar might be making the trip north again. That clearly isn't the case. There was also talk that the signing and the quick signing of Lefebvre may be as a result of the Wards continuing on as owners, where there had been rumours that they were looking to sell the team. But they may have put too high a price tag on prospective buyers, and they have walked away. So a lot of interesting things going on in Dundee at the minute, and a lot of sort of interesting chat in the stands, let alone what's kind of happening publicly. But yes, you're absolutely correct. This is not the only team who needs to be making these sort of calls. And let's just pay respects quickly to Mace. Absolute servant to the Belfast Giants when he was in Teal. It's a massive shame, and I did chat to my friends in Dundee and said the team that Mace is coaching is not entirely his. That is a team that was at least, let's say, half signed by the time he took the reins. I think the idea was that was a deal made at playoffs last year, that Mace was going to head to Tayside. I would have liked, Dave, like you say, like any coach given 1 year can only do so much. I would have liked to see Mace given another year. Clearly he was under pressure from the start with what he was given. But it would have been nice to see him build a team from scratch and be given that opportunity. But the Stars and the Ward family clearly are not doing that. The other team who clearly need to do something are the Fife Flyers. We, like you say, Marty, we have talked about it time and time again. There is palpable frustration in Kirkcaldy. I've been to a few games down there. Unfortunately, my hairdresser is a Flyers fan. I am not looking forward to my haircut next week before playoffs. I might turn up looking like a shaved cat. No idea what I'm going to end up looking like coming down. The massive problem facing change in Fife is the fact that they made the playoff final this year. That will be taken by the owners as a win, and unfortunately that is not what the fans want. The fans want a reflection on the consistent results in the league. They want change because this cannot carry on.
Did you see the interview with Doots at the end for the last game?
No.
In Guildford?
No.
You would have thought he won the league the way he was talking. You know, it was like, yeah, we're not happy with the result, but we made the Challenge Cup final. It's not every team can say they did that this year. And you're going, you know, you're sitting there. Yes, okay, they were a point off a playoff spot, but
like a point off might as well be 10 points off. It doesn't matter.
That's it. But the way he talked about it, you thought that his team was fantastic, and that is the issue. Is that he's going to hang his hat on it.
So I appreciate that it is just the 1 point, but what's the major difference there between the Fife Flyers and the Glasgow Clan being only 1 point, and the Fife were actually in the final?
For the Glasgow Clan, the difference is they have 2 playoff games to play, where Fife don't.
You can also make an argument as well, and I'm not defending what has happened. I'm not defending what has happened in Glasgow this year, but you could make the argument about, obviously they had a poor start to the season in relation to getting up and running quite late. They had the whole issue around their coach halfway through the season, and that whole big issue around that coach. You have the whole big media backlash from the stupid thing about signing a player that they were like, we didn't know. We had all of that this year. We had players walking away from the team. We had mass exodus of players, shall we say, at one point, where it just felt like there was hemorrhaging people left, right, and centre. And they had, let's be honest, they've had an unfortunately bad season this year. Some things brought on themselves, some things out of their control, and I think what they've been able to do is bring in this temporary stand-in coach, GM, or whatever it was, to kind of tie everything together. They obviously had the whole thing around the sale of the team. Is the team being sold? Is it not being sold? And Black still wanting to hang on to the team. Is not uncertainty around all of that. So I think when we take into consideration and we look at the background for the Glasgow Clan and everything that they've had to put up with this year, or you can't really say that for Dundee and Fife, because they've had quite, there's been no real, well, maybe there is and we just don't know, drama. But there's been issues there. They've got strong sales there. They've got people who are owning them, and has been no issues really around that. You've got long-term, coaches and GMs and stuff in the likes of in Fife. So I think that's a bit of a difference, I would say. Well, that would be my argument for the difference. Here's a question. I have got a question for you, Aaron. And it just came out of because of something that John did say, and John used the phrase high price tag, which kind of then triggered something that was a bit of a conversation today. So Dundee, here's the question. Here's what I'm going to put to you, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So Dundee came bottom of the league. They came 10th. They changed their coach, and then today, I want to say, or was it yesterday? Yeah, no, just over 24 hours ago. So yesterday, this was the Dundee Stars then put out their ticket prices for the 2020 for the 2023-2024 season. For their season ticket prices, I should say, and their season ticket for the year comes in at £582. A concession ticket is £480. Which means that let me see. Someone did the work. Someone did the maths for me. So I'm going to try and have a wee look here what the maths was per game. So someone had already worked out how much it was. So it was for how many games was that for? So it's 582. Basically, it works out. They're going to be the most expensive game. The most expensive game to go to this year will be in Dundee. And
it's already expensive for that. Like, I'll put it out there. I paid £22 to watch the Giants get humped.
It's 22 quid a ticket for a single ticket. What is it, 18, 16?
18, yeah.
29 the Giants, when you put on the fees.
18 plus booking fees, yeah.
Yeah, so it works out at exactly
fees.
£20
Yeah.
if you put on the ticket fees now for for Ticketmaster. But I mean that's a quite an extortion. That's quite a high price for a season ticket. Would you agree?
Yes.
Well, at least they're offering 0% interest over 12 months.
Are they?
I'm on the Dundee Stars website here. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, at least that's one thing.
What's that? £2 a point or something this, or not even, about a £5 a point that they got this year.
That's mad.
But yeah, it's mad. It's crazy. Guys, I think that's it.
Do we know? We don't have an idea of what each team's spend is, do we?
Supposedly, they all spend within the cap.
The cap, yeah.
Yeah, within the cap.
Mysterious
As long
cap.
as it's within the cap, but doesn't mean that that's your maximum. It doesn't mean that they're all spending that volume.
I would say that looking at the way the tables ended this season, with the exception of Guildford, who I think swung way above their financial expectations, I think you could probably look at the spend. I would, with maybe one or two slight changes, I would probably put Sheffield further up on spend.
Yeah.
And maybe Nottingham as well. Really, unfortunately for their position, I think they probably spent a good bit more. But I think the spend level is probably reflective of the league table at the minute.
We didn't really talk about the middle of the table.
Yeah, well, Nottingham's still the bottom, technically, but yeah.
It's done. We will talk about
somewhere.
we'll hold that because we will talk about the middle of the table when we come back towards in our overtime segment, because we are going to be talking about playoffs. So hold that because we will talk about it, because we will be talking about what the actual who's playing who, and we'll talk about maybe at that point as well about Sheffield's media blunder. We'll need to come back to that too. John, I'm going to switch over to you. I'm going to hand the rest of the period over to you, because I think the next two stories at least are your side. I've got one added in one, but so we'll come back to me at the end.
Okay. I put a story in there that was about the Giants winning the Elite League, but clearly we've already covered that. But
Yep.
We just want to remind
They
everyone
won the
that the
Elite?
Belfast Giants won the Viaplay Elite League for, I believe it was the third time.
In a row.
Sorry, third
In a row.
third time in a row and sixth time overall.
I don't think we asked this question. So for John and I, who watched it on TV, what was the atmosphere like?
Oh, it was bouncing.
What you imagine the atmosphere was going to be like is pretty much exactly what the atmosphere was like. As soon as that last 2 minutes of play, that last 2 minutes in the arena, we were on our feet. Everyone was on their feet.
Where does it rank between the Conti Cup shootout and the CHL game? Those were the two biggest crowd involvement games I've ever been at in the SSE.
I think if it was a tighter game, it would have felt more like those games that you're talking about. It wasn't a tight game, so therefore I think the whole last pretty much 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 minutes nearly, because it was such a big difference with the score line, people became really confident and were getting a bit, and you were just hearing more and more of the, we are number one chants and stuff. And me and Dave both don't like that chant, so we were kind of sitting there being like, oh, let's not start that yet.
Artie maybe did it at the very end as well.
I did make you do it at the very end, but that was okay at the very end because it was only a minute left in the game, and I think we had won the game at that point.
Still
Dave.
freaking out.
My voice doesn't work, Dave. You have to cheer for
I'll
me.
go with you on that chant, because some of the fans in Dundee the next night tried to do the "We Are Number One" when it was about 7-1, and the Dundee fans just started shouting "We Are Number 10," and then getting close to the end of the game, they started chanting "We Want 10," because they only needed one more goal for it.
Yeah,
So-
I don't like that chant at all. I'm not a big
It's
fan.
Oh, hold on. You definitely we were at a game.
Oh, the We Want 10? Oh, no, that's a different thing.
We Want
Oh, yeah.
10. You definitely
No,
cheered
yeah,
for
no,
We
no, I
Want
like that chant. No, I like that
Oh,
chant.
that
I mean
not the "We
I
Are
mean
Number
the,
One."
I mean the we are number one,
Not-
because
not-
it's got too many options for it to come back and bite you in the bum.
Not the Sheffield Gold song, though.
No. But no, the atmosphere itself, as you can imagine, it was a fantastic atmosphere. It was a great atmosphere. People were just, as you can imagine, people were just straight away, within the last few minutes, people were on their feet. The noise was rising, really good. But again, as I say, I would kind of say, I remember thinking back to the Challenge Cup game, and I remember during, I think it was the second period break, I was talking to Paddy Smith from A Few from the Bridge on that game, and I remember him just saying, it's a shame that it's such an out there game, that the gap is such a big, because it's kind of, reduced the actual like atmosphere a bit, and I felt that was a bit the same when it came to the third period and there's such a big scoreline deficit. I kind of felt it was a bit stilted in certain parts, and still noise, don't get me wrong, still brilliant and whatever else, but I just think, and even that last final whistle, when the whistle blew and everyone went nuts and everything else, is still the same, but I just don't, it wouldn't be at the same level as you're talking, John, in relation to the CHL
So probably
pressure.
comparable to that challenge,
Yeah.
probably comparable to that Challenge Cup win this year then.
Yeah, I would say it would be the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
Right, well, I'll move on. Okay. So, Marty's just not even either listening or paying attention, so I'll just carry on without the permission of the host.
I dropped something, sorry, apologies.
Drop one.
Guys, I'm bringing you news from Ice Hockey UK. I'm going to ignore that, I'm going to carry on. Ice Hockey UK this week have announced that the national governing body for the sport in the UK have a new chief executive officer in the form of Henry Stallings, who will become the new CEO, and he'll take up office in mid-April. A large part of the role, according to Ice Hockey UK, will be the ongoing progression of the GB programme and its representative teams, as well as key relationship with Ice Hockey Federation, the IHF, the home nation associations consisting of the EIHA, the SIH, and the Elite League, and the organisations in UK Sport, British Olympic Association, and the Home Nation Sports Council, and UK Anti-Doping. He's got a massive remit. He's coming with experience. His most recent role was as Chief Executive of Forest Green Rovers, who were renowned as the world's greenest football club, according to FIFA. So from my perspective, it's nice to see that there's someone with an environmental conscience is coming in here. Guys, it's a change of direction. This has been coming for a while. There's been, I think, somebody acting as a chair or a holding chair CEO for at least the last number of months, if not close to a year. Doesn't say anything about this idea for unification and unified body quite yet. But it's nice to see somebody coming in. Probably nice to see somebody coming in from outside the sport. Marty, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I guess when I read the story and I watched a little thing, watched a little bit that he had done. He kind of commented about, it's time that we bring, such a fast-paced sport, a sport that is just growing and growing and growing in the UK, and stop treating it like it's this, secret little thing that people should be people are holding on to. It should be getting more appeal, and I think it's very interesting, as you say, John. Like it's a big task he's coming in. A lot to do. I mean, he's got an ambitious commercial, marketing, communication strategy. Everything has to be built upon. Expanding the audience of ice hockey right across the UK and all of the different facets of it, in terms of the IHF tournaments. Ice Hockey UK itself as Team GB, all of those things all fall under this banner. So it's a lot of stuff that he's going to have to try and pull under. But I think you're right. I think it's a great idea to bring in someone. Now, obviously, I don't know how big. What was the name of the team? Sorry, that he's coming from.
Forest Green
Rovers. I don't know where that team plays. I don't know. I don't know. Like they could be in Division 4. I don't know where they are. Let's put it that way.
Next door to Wrexham.
It could be even.
League One.
Sorry, they're League One. There you go. Well, there you go. I mean, let's not sniff that down if they're in League One. But I mean, I think it's right. I think people sometimes will turn their nose up, and I know we joke around and we like football. I know we joke around about it, and people turn their nose up about hockey fans can be quite snobby about football and everything else. But the one thing you will say about football is they know how to brand, they know how to advertise, and they know how to get they know how to get their branding out there. They know how to get that sport to be seen, and then they know how to get a club to be seen. So I think to bring in someone with that mentality, someone who knows how to kind of bring it forward on a national level, I think that's what you're looking for, and I think that's exciting times for UK hockey.
I have a question for you, John.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Where does the UK ice hockey govern Northern Ireland?
Do they not fall under the Scottish programme?
Fall under the Irish programme?
Or no, sorry, no. So his coverage will be as the Elite League or stakeholders in Ice Hockey UK. That's where that'll come under. Because I think the juniors are governed under the Scottish system to make sure that they've actually got opposition.
No, because we govern under the Irish, and then we play in the teams play in the Scottish one. That's why we've not many home games.
Well, anyway, the most interesting thing, one of the biggest reasons that Forest Green Football Club are called the greenest is because did you know that all they serve, their food-wise, everything's vegan?
Wow.
So
what, just beers and nuts?
They said that they wanted to become a vegan club because of the huge environmental and animal welfare impact of livestock farming, as well as to improve player performance and give fans healthier, tastier match day food. So,
Beers and nuts.
if a microwave burger in the SSE takes about 25 minutes to get cooked and given to you, I wonder how long it would take them to do like a bean burger.
No, John. No. 25 minutes? No. Run out just before just like maybe like 2 minutes at the end of the period. Run downstairs, scan your ticket out, go into the pavilion, go to Five Guys, get your burger at Five Guys. You could probably get that done, eat that, and have that done before the even game starts back again for the second period.
Just eat before you walk out.
Just eat. Oh my God, just eat.
Do you think Just Eat would do it to the inside pavilion doors?
Yes, they could.
I mean, that's possibly the laziest thing in the world to do is to get a Just Eat or a delivery guy to take it from Five Guys to those doors.
No, put in the Cineworld address and get them to bring it upstairs to Cineworld and meet you at the actual escalators for Cineworld. Even better.
Why can't you just put your seat number in?
I mean, let's be honest, he's not wrong.
Delivery guys coming down like, sorry, I've got an order here for
guys, I'm gonna bring the tone down now, unfortunately, because this week sad news broke in Basingstoke, and that was the news that the Basingstoke Bison will not be competing in the 2023-24 NIHL season. The reason given for this is that there are major works required at the rink. Now, first and foremost, our thoughts are with Anthony from Banners. He's deeply involved with Basingstoke Bison. If you haven't had a chance, I have read through the piece that he put out just a couple of days ago. It's a great read from a guy who is clearly hurting at the moment, is clearly invested in his team, and the work that he does for the Bison is second to none. And we do hope fairly soon to have Anthony on, because he is going to absolutely school us on our NIHL knowledge as well. But if you haven't had a chance to read it, go and read Anthony's piece. You get a real insight into the unfortunate situation in Basingstoke, the issues between the rink operator and the local council, and why the rink has gotten into the sad state that it is. But guys, I think this kind of predates me and my Giants time, but Marty and Dave, I think you guys have a bit of a soft spot for Basingstoke in particular.
Yeah, I mean, Dave's got his. I knew Dave was going to put his Basingstoke Bison jersey there. Obviously Basingstoke haven't previously been in the Elite League and stuff, and our early days of supporting the Giants, watching the team coming and playing, and you do kind of have a bit of a soft spot for those teams who have played previously in the Elite League, and you get to see and you got to know those household names and stuff, and you do build up an affinity for those teams. With the likes of Basingstoke Bison, we have a fondness for a fondness for the Vipers. She was a big one for us too. We had a massive fan. We're big fans of those as well. And you talk about the Hull Stingrays, another team that that we would have we love the name of and stuff, and we hold quite close
Bracknell
as well.
Bees at the end of the day.
Yeah, Bracknell and Edinburgh Capital still to this day. There's those teams that you just kind of do have a little affinity for, because you did compete against them. You did in the early days. They were the names. Those are the names. Those are the teams that you're constantly seeing, and you're kind of you became kind of so familiar with what the product you're seeing on ice. I suppose
so many great players came from some of those teams as well. Basingstoke, you had Stevie Lyle, Steve Thornton. Teams that are names that are synonymous with the sort of Giants legacy. And it's a shame when a big team or a team like Basingstoke that has such history is obviously struggling now. So they're going to be out for a year. They're hoping to be back, but you never know with these big changes.
And that is, as it's being said at the moment, it's a pause. It's not a good. Well, It's hopefully a pause. It's not a
They're
goodbye.
saying that, but I think there is real concern that the amount of work that's required. Now there has been a councillor has given a statement to say that the money, something like 2.5 million, has been secured and that the work will be done. But a lot of people are considering some of that to be a bit disingenuous at the minute, because the statement from the rink has said that while the Bison won't play, that junior training and other on ice activities will continue. And the questions are already starting to come out about, well, how can you possibly do work to the ice plant and still continue with the juniors and public skating and all the rest of it. The other thing is that people have been fairly clear in their comments on social media and said that the rink has been to the point of being dilapidated or even worse, and the ice has been dangerous. So
I've seen a few comments about how dangerous it was.
Yep.
There was a lot of people comparing it to Whitley.
Yep.
Which is terrifying.
Okay. Yeah, I mean...
well, apparently there's an entire stand that just isn't used in the rink. So that in itself, I mean, why that's been allowed to continue on. And clearly it's down to arguments about who is supposed to foot the money up, whether it's the rink operator. The council, I saw, put a statement out that said that their lease with Planet Ice states that it is the leaseholder or Planet Ice's responsibility to keep the building in a decent state. If that's the case, then it's the council as the leasee, the leaseor, to ensure that they're inspecting it and making sure that their leasee in Planet Ice is doing the work. And that should have started from day one of the lease with Planet Ice. So this is either... Well, actually, to be honest, it's poor management from both. And it's a sad state of affairs that a team like Basingstoke are having to take minimum one season off and put fans through the worry of not knowing whether their team is actually going to come back, because this is a whole season where a whole team of guys, if they want to keep playing, are going to have to go elsewhere. When you've then got, say, the work done after a year, maybe more, what position is that team in? Is there a crew of coaches? Is there even an owner that's willing to put the investment and money in to bring that team back in after 1 or 2 seasons of no gate? We talk about some of the elite league team being gate to mouth, if you like, with their money. That's especially true down in the NIHL. So these are worrying times to be a Basingstoke Bison fan, and it's really, really sad to see a team go that way. We've seen it previously, Manchester. We've seen it. We've seen it in London, and we've seen it more recently in the Isle of Wight as well. And this looks like just another example of ice sports in particular not being high on the agenda, and it's a shame.
Yeah, I do genuinely hope that that it is kind of one of those 1 year only. I do genuinely hope it's a 1 year gap. It's a 1 year of trying to improve facilities, increase the quality of the facility around for everyone, for both the spectators as well as the players themselves, so that Bison can come back and return to the ice again in the following season, because I understand, where you're sitting right now, there is that uncertainty around, that concern around, well, okay, you're saying it's for a year. Is it going to be a year? And I kind of get that, and I really do genuinely hope for all of the fans there, and everybody involved with the Bison, right from top down, from ownership down to, current coaching GMs and everything else. I do genuinely hope that it does resolve itself, and that they're back on ice after a year.
I hope that that their last game at Planet Ice is this Sunday. Easter Sunday. You would say that's going to be, you'd hope it would be a fairly jumping game to go to. That a lot of their fans will come down and see them.
Maybe don't jump too hard.
Not jumping. That's why I was like, maybe not jumping, but just
tap your feet gently, everyone.
Yes.
What do you say, guys? Do we make a commitment? If they come back, do we go and see a game?
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
Right, there you go. That's definitely going to get the council. That's going to get Basingstoke Council on it. Absolutely. 14 guys say they're going to come down.
Dave, let us a jersey, would you?
We're going to spend $2.5 million to get a random podcast based in Northern Ireland and Scotland to come down here for one game. But yeah, you guys get playing again, hopefully for the 24-25 season, and we'll be there. Anthony, you can take that as
Take it to the bank.
That's it.
Take it to the bank.
Marty, I'm going to pass over to you for the last story there that you've thrown in as we were recording.
I was just Google mapping Basingstoke to see kind of where is Basingstoke.
Southwest of London.
How do we get there?
We fly to Southampton.
How do we get there? I'm
well,
also
you
saying,
guys
like,
fly to Southampton.
what else is near here? Oh, and it's only like there's only 30 minutes roughly between Guildford and Basingstoke. You know, you could tie in a.
Look, to be honest, what we're saying is Guildford and Basingstoke need to have a chat here and organise home games. Basingstoke, you guys do a home game. We don't care who you play, but do a home game. Guildford versus the Giants. That needs to be the Saturday. Just make sure they're opposite days, and we're set.
Great. Okay, yep, as you say, one last story in this period, and it's sticking with the NIHL. And this is actually a news that has broke tonight, and people are probably wondering why we're bringing this story up and talking about retirement in the NIHL. But I think it's a worthy announcement to talk about, and I think this is a significant retirement in the NIHL. This year will mark the end, or mark the skates will be hung up for Lee Jameson, who celebrated his 600th game this past weekend for the Milton Keynes Lightning. Lee Jameson is a name that is notorious for not only for the Milton Keynes Lightning, but he is well-known name around the Belfast Giants as well. And again, we talk about these names. We talk about people having little soft spot, little place in our hearts. Lee Jameson's one of those players. He got the attention of the Belfast Giants in the league, and he spent 5 seasons in Northern Ireland playing for the Belfast Giants before he moved to Coventry Blaze for one season, eventually moving back to the Milton Keynes Lightning in 2009. He is going to be retiring his skates at the end of the season after the 600 game milestone, and over 20 plus years of playing. So really just we wanted to just recognise that and just say stick taps to Lee Jameson. Successful mighty career right across the Elite League and also NIHL, and he will be a big name, a franchise name, and a household name that is one of those names that's going to be leaving at the end of this season. We no doubt will have, by the time we come back to our next episode next week, in 2 weeks' time after the playoffs, no doubt we'll probably have a lot of other names that will be added to that list of retirements for this year. I think there's 2 or 3 names that we're going to get before the end of this season. I think we're going to hear over the playoff weekend. One of them particularly I think we're going to hear. I'm not going to say which name I think it is, but I think I've chatted to Dave about this one. I think there's a name that's coming out by the end of the season, and I'd be very surprised if it doesn't. But I would say over playoff weekend we're going to hear of a number of other retirements, so we will come back to more retirements before the end of the season. But yes, again, stick taps, great career, and I think it's time. I think he's made the right decision for himself. So fair play to him.
Yep, here. Yep.
Okay, guys, do we have any more in this period? No? Okay. With that, then we'll get stuck into our period 2 of hockey.
Hello and welcome to Period 2 of Hockey. This is where we'll talk about hockey from outside of the United Kingdom. And as usual, well, not as usual, I was about to say Marty has done a lot of this, but this is John's period apparently this week. John's put quite a few stories in, so I'll swiftly hand it over to him. He's got a few ones that look a bit spicy.
Well, they're all kind of linked. It's essentially one story. So over the last few years, we've been pretty good at covering Pride and its representation, the nights that a lot of teams have had. Unfortunately, there's been some high profile, I don't want to call them incidents, but high profile occasions of players choosing not to celebrate the LGBTQ community alongside other players and alongside the community of fans who are represented within the hockey family. That was not true this week in Nashville. Nashville played their Pride game. They skated out wearing their Pride jerseys amongst a lot of other events that took place in Music City. And one of the first, not the first team, but as an absolute bonus, all players were wearing the Pride warm-up jersey. Coach Hines gave an interview before the game, and I'm just going to read verbatim what he said because I think it's important to hear. So this was John Hines, the head coach of the Nashville Predators. All the players will be wearing the jerseys. It's something that we talked about as an organisation, and we believe we're an inclusive organisation and truly believe that hockey is a safe place for everybody. And it's something that our players are all on board with and want to represent everyone involved, from the organisation to people outside of the organisation. We talked with all the players about it. This is what our philosophy is as an organisation. But the players are a big part of the organisation, so we had the discussion with the players just to see if there were any issues or anything like that. But the guys were all on board with it. We're planning on everyone wearing the jerseys and representing the organisation that way, and that was exactly what happened. Preds defenseman Tyson Barry talked about the importance of Pride Night for himself. He thinks it's an awesome initiative. It's something that's really close to his heart. He's got family members and best friends in the community, and there's a little bit of frustration on my end with what's transpired this year with everything. Clearly he's talking about elsewhere in the league. I think I know how hard it can be for people to come out and live their authentic lives, and I hope that none of the stuff that's gone on has pushed anyone back, any young kids who are thinking about it. So I'm just really, really excited that everybody in our team is going to participate. Guys, to me, that's what hockey's about, and I am incredibly glad that it was that my team and one of my defensemen and my head coach can come out with statements like that. I think that is powerful, considering the issues that Pride has had in the NHL in particular this season. Guys, any comment, any input on that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'll start us off. I mean, obviously, I think, was it me and Dave, was it us on the last podcast? We were chatting about this. I know this has been an ongoing story we've been trying to talk about over the course of the last few podcasts, and this isn't, this is obviously a continuing story that seems to be a thing that's kind of going across the whole season. It's great that the Preds came out and said what they said, and they kind of, as a full team decided to do what they do. We know there's been a number of issues this season where there's been things coming out where initially it was a bit of like an obscure kind of like, why is it happening, and then obviously in our last podcast we talked about the fact that there was this story came out from about the fact that there was a security concern around players wearing Pride jerseys, because there was a concern for any Russian-born players to come out and be supporting Pride jerseys. They wouldn't be allowed back into their own home country ever again. There was a whole big thing around families and home being targeted. New laws and legislation coming in across Russia because of it. And we know all of the stuff that's going on there. So fair play to the Preds, first and foremost, for standing up and saying what they said and doing, showing it with the actual fact that they stuck to their guns, wore those jerseys, and did what they needed to do. The other thing I should say is obviously we have had other teams since then as well who have also had similar Pride nights. We've had the Toronto Maple Leafs, who I should note had a Pride night in Toronto, but what we should say is that and the Leafs made it very clear is they didn't wear a themed jersey for their Pride night. However, what should be noted is the Toronto Maple Leafs do not and have not worn a Pride jersey since 2017 anyway. They do other things on and off the ice. They do the stick. They still did the tape of the stick. They still had decals on their helmets. I think it was only one player maybe that which was the goaltender, which was the Leafs goaltender was the only player who opted out of having the decal on his helmet. And again, that's all to do with the fact that, again, this whole risk, is a Russian goaltender, this whole risk of security concerns that the NHL had raised in the last at the tail end of last month that we talked about in our last podcast. So that was within rights for him to do that. And I'm saying as of tonight, I know the Columbus Blue Jackets, or the Canadian Montreal Canadiens, are due to have their Pride night tonight, and they have put a statement out in the last 2 hours, basically just saying that for 7 years the Montreal Canadiens have proudly supported the LGBTQIA+ community through fundraising and awareness efforts. Wearing Pride colours and jerseys is a message to groups lacking representation for the hockey is for everyone, and for everyone is welcome to enjoy and engage in our sport at the Bell Centre. There are families, friends, neighbours, humans, all deserve our dignity, respect, and fundamental underpinnings of the evening's events. We have been made aware that one of our players has chosen not to wear the special Pride jersey tonight for family reasons and for our issues around security and safety. As such, he will not participate in warm-ups with his teammates. While we understand the decision, we also hope that the focus and attention will remain on what it should be, and that it belongs on evolving as a society and becoming accepting and welcoming of everyone within our sport. So what Montreal Canadiens are saying is, we respect the fact that there's a player who's there because of security, safety, and family concerns. We're highlighting that is one player who's not going to be standing because of it, but we don't want that to take away from the fact that the rest of us are doing it And again, I think that Montreal Canadiens should be praised as well for the fact that they've come out and have said what that is.
I think that's the right way to message it around it.
And
it's interesting. I want to point out just on kind of what you were talking about there, especially with the sort of Russian security idea. Whether it's a stance that these players are taking in particular, I don't know. But to be clear, the Nashville Predators have 2 Russian forwards who chose to participate in the Pride warm-ups in Nashville. Igor Afanasev and Yakov Trenin both participated fully in the event and clearly made no issue of the whole thing. So it does throw it back that yes, the league may be sort of covering their backsides on the potential blowback, and yes, I'm not making light of the potential risk to these players or to their families, because let's face it, Russia is an absolute dictator state about how it manages its LGBTQ plus community. Saying anything that promotes it is propaganda, which is just absolute nonsense, in amongst a whole pile of other nonsense decisions that Russia have made in the last few years. So I think I in particular would give stick taps to those players for standing up for something, but I don't make light of other players who are choosing to make another decision. It is their decision to make.
Yep. The only other thing I would say on that is that obviously we know that, like, obviously we when we first were talking about these stories, we weren't really sure of what was going on and what was being said, and I know this story has kind of came out at the end of last month, where it was the whole thing around security risks and concerns around family and everything else, and we kind of knew about that already, with the fact that, like, we heard stories very early in the season, even before the prize stuff was coming up. We heard stories about players saying they were at risk and concerns around certain involvement with certain things, and we heard that, you know, we know that was aware, but we obviously can't deny the fact that, you know, there is a very politically heated debate and stuff going on in the States at the moment, which is far beyond ours, because obviously we don't live there, we don't know, you know, we're only seeing it from an outsider's point of view. We know what's going on at the moment, especially with the trans community in the US and stuff, and it's such a heated debate right now. And I know that some people will then argue, well, then is the NHL trying to stand away, and kind of some of the teams being scared to kind of make a stance, given the fact that there's such a heated conversation going on right now. But I'd like to think the fact that, like, you know, we do have the fact that a lot of the teams have come out and have acknowledged the fact that, like, you know, actually the majority of the players who are not doing it are Russian or whatever it is. You would like to think then that the real reason then is this new alert that has been finally they've come out and said this is the concern that we have, and this is one of the reasons why our Russian players are not taking part in this whole thing.
There's the US and everything's going on. Every time there's a push to support an underprivileged group, they seem to turn it into an attack on the majority, which it's not. It's about uplifting somebody who is disadvantaged and being the person who puts out a hand to help. You know, there's no other way to put it, but sometimes that gets turned around and turned into this, well, if you're having to talk about this, why don't you talk about that, you know, sort of comments, which is not what is not what Pride's about. It's the olive branch, the hand out to help somebody who's been disenfranchised. That's something outside their control, and it's all you can do is be there and be a supporter and an ally for them.
Here.
I think some of what we said last time is because as you say, we've talked about this quite a lot this season. It's come up quite a few times. The Flyers, one of the Flyers players didn't partake, and it was a sentiment that I can't remember exactly who said it, but it was pretty much don't take away. Like, I appreciate that there's these few players that aren't taking part, but don't take away from the sentiment that we actually have by having these Pride nights. Focus on that story, focus on that community.
I think what
the
we do know
fundraising that gets put in place by those Pride nights as well, you know, as much as there might be a person that's not worn a jersey or a team that's not worn a jersey, every team, as far as I'm aware, has still taken part in a Pride sort of fundraiser. So that's still something to be.
I think what will be clear at the end of the season, which will be interesting to see, is what does happen. Where does Hockey is for Everyone movement go? What is the ramifications going to be? What is the plan going to be for the next coming season? And is there going to be something is it going to shake up in some way, or are they going to have to relook at something? So that'll be an interesting thing coming out of the season, is how is that going to move moving forward? What is the NHL's Hockey is for Everyone campaign going to look like, and what's that going to be? So I'm sure we'll be talking about this at the start of next season, because I'm sure that will be something that will come up.
Okay. I think we have one that Aaron put in, and is he ready to talk about it?
Oh, this is my story. Yes, and it's a story that another story that has come up quite a while. I don't know. Did this start this season? When did this is around
this started as soon as Arizona that franchise moved there. This has just been an absolute cluster the whole time.
Wait, so this is regarding Arizona, the Coyotes. When did they move stadium? When did they get kicked out of their last stadium? Was that this season?
This is their first season. This is their first season in Mullet.
In the Mullet Arena.
And I still have to say, calling it Arena is a bit of a push.
Yeah. So what has happened is that the Arizona Coyotes have. It looked like they were finally finding an answer to their arena issues by finding a deal for an entertainment district in Tempe.
Tempe.
I can read Tempe.
You just tested us, right?
I'm just testing you.
I mean, episode 99. We are clearly the greatest ones out here. Giving you all the greatest hockey content.
That's it. But anyway, it looks like there is a little snag going on, and it seems that Phoenix and the Arizona Coyotes are having a little bit of a tit for tat. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
So they put in a bid to build a new arena in this new entertainment district, and it looked like it was going to go ahead, and it was going to be quite a big development. As I say, it was an entertainment district, and it was going to have an airport. But there was going to be an airport, but there wasn't going to be any housing in this entertainment district. Am I right in saying that?
No, it was the opposite way around. So the entertainment district is being built close to the airport, the Tempe airport.
Right.
It's being close. It's been built in a zone in Arizona, in Phoenix, which is known as Sky Harbor, which is the district of where the international airport is, because it's the Sky Harbor International Airport. So I think the idea was that Arizona Coyotes had found a space and a land that they wanted to use for an entertainment district, which would include the new arena. It would include kind of similar, like the pavilion kind of style, where they'd have like restaurants, outlets, and that sort of thing. But on top of that, what they wanted to have as part of this 2.3 billion project was they wanted to have homes and residential development area capabilities, so that they could have high-rise flats and apartments in some residential areas, again to entice in people to the area, so there are people living in and around the entertainment district, so that they don't have an area where you have like where it's previously maybe happened with the Odyssey here in Belfast, which is a good example, where you had the pavilion which set with all of this entertainment stuff for long enough where it had no housing, fell apart, didn't really kind of ground, and now there's housing and there's development in and around the Odyssey Arena, and now we are trying to rebuild the entertainment aspect, because now we actually have people who can actually come along to that point. So the problem, I think, was, sorry, I'm stealing your story.
No, work away.
I think what I was taking from it was the understanding was that that's what they had filed, that's what they asked for, and I think that's what was kind of rubber stamped. It was like, okay, that's fine, but then Phoenix Township then came across and have decided that they have rejected the approval at this time for any development of residential areas. So what they've said is, yeah, you can have your entertainment area. However, we're now saying that it's not compatible for residential development because there's too much noise complaints because of the airport.
The city is saying that they've taken recommendations from the Federal Aviation Authority, which says that because of the flight path of the airport, the noise generated by the aircraft would breach limits for residential development.
Right.
So while the agreement was rubber stamped to say to the Yotes and their development company, which I think is called Bluebird, to say, yes, you can do all of this. They've since come back on this and have said, actually, no, you can't do the residential because the FAA says you can't. So,
I thought they couldn't do any of it though.
no.
So
So they can still do the
Because-
entertainment, they can still build the arena, but what the
Right.
yachts want is the residential part of it, and that's why they're suing for what they're calling breach of contract with the city of Phoenix.
and it just so happens that they're suing for the same amount of money as the actual development would cost, which is 2.3 billion. So that's quite that's quite an interesting way to do it. So the actual amount of the development is actually how much they're suing for. So they're basically suing for damages for 2.3 billion. So I think as a result, I think what Phoenix, the township of Phoenix have turned around and went is like, okay, so you're suing us for 2.3 billion. So basically that's the cost of the development that you want to build. They're like, okay, well, do you know what? We'll step back and we'll say, okay, you can put in that development plan. That's okay. Let's go for it. So it's kind of still unsure of whether or not it's going to happen. I think, Aaron, did you say there was a date there that they haven't to put it forward?
Yeah. So where did I see that? It was at the very bottom of not this article. It was something like the 9th of May. There's a vote being put forward. I
mean,
swear I thought that they weren't able to do it because it sounded like that Phoenix were trying to. The way it's worded here is to keep their monopoly of their downtown sports venues. So they were allowing other things to happen, but they weren't allowing the ice hockey to happen, the ice hockey arena, because Phoenix wanted to keep their monopoly of their venues in the city rather than outside the city.
No, as far as I know, there was always. I mean, from I remember from before Christmas time, we talked about the fact that the planning had been put in, for this development to happen, and I think it was, as we say, it was kind of rubber stamped at that point to say, yep, this all looks good. This is the plans, and I think then it was going to be put to the council, the township. I think it was supposed to be put to the township around about March time to have this discussion. Obviously, this discussion has happened in March, and this is what came from that discussion is that they've said, yep, that's fine. You can go ahead with your entertainment village, but you're not having your residential area that you want.
Look, at this point, the reality is that this relationship is poisoned. Like, you had the team effectively were locked out of their arena because they weren't paying their bills. This is a team that has been in receivership twice. It was run by the league for 4 years because their previous owner ran them into bankruptcy. The new owner came in and bought the team under the sort of rules and regulations that the team would stay in Phoenix because that's exactly where the league wants it. And now they're running into more and more of these problems. You've got the NHL is one as well, call it three completely incompetent franchise owners who are driving a franchise team into the ground. You've got one of your 32 teams that is a complete laughingstock, let's be honest, because they can't pay bills, they now can't build an arena, and they're playing out of a college hockey team's home arena. And from what we saw at the start of the season, they were failing to sell it out every game. I'm not sure what the position is now, and to be honest, I don't care enough to go and look at the stats at this point. To me, this has to be a relocation. It's absolutely. It doesn't matter what Gary Bettman and what the NHL wants. The only way forward for this team is to move, and this has to be done before the NHL talks about further expansion. Because what you end up doing is expanding to 33 or 34 teams, and if you leave the Yotes where they are, the inevitable is going to happen, and that team is going to fold. Because the Yotes, remember, are also embroiled in this broadcast rights problem, which means they're not going to be getting the money that was promised through that system as well. So the NHL, as an organisation, cannot prop up this franchise. So they have to move somewhere else. I know they have one of the best alternate jerseys in the league. That alternate logo is absolutely fantastic, but it doesn't pay the bills unless you're charging $20,000 per jersey.
Maybe they will. Maybe that's what
Maybe
it
they
means.
will. Maybe the absolute lunatics who follow this team will pay that. Mostly all through Paul Bissonnette being on Spittin' Chicklets, because all he does is pump the tires of this team because he played for them. But no, in league, for the league's benefit, this has to end at some point, and it can only end with them going somewhere else. whether that's this new franchise in the Toronto area, whether it's to Quebec, like the entire world wants. The entire world wants a franchise in Quebec. Just send the Yotes there. They're waiting. They've got an arena. They are ready for an NHL franchise. This has to stop because it's beyond a joke now.
I found the information about the votes, so we might find out more about that. The voters are slated to decide if the plan goes forward in May 16th, as I said. But of course, it's going to be unclear if this vote actually takes place because of the legal actions might change the process. And there's it just continues on the story, pretty much reiterating what John said. It's like it hasn't even broken ground yet, and based on history, this is going to be a dirty game for the next while. There's going to be
this
some
is it as
twists
well.
and turns and angry statements.
We talked before we started recording. Even if they get their planning, how long is it going to be before they actually play a game at this new arena, if it actually happens? Minimum 5 years for me. So
Easy.
that's 5 years that the league has got to continue propping up this team. It's a joke. They have to move. If Phoenix can get their beep together and get this arena built, and maybe this is what it needs. Maybe it needs the current ownership and it needs that franchise, that team, to go away so that Phoenix can get themselves together and build this arena themselves. Maybe the city needs to build it. Feel the dream style. Build it and they will come. Go for an expansion team at that point. It's been done before. Teams have moved away and expansion teams have moved in.
There's also nothing, in my opinion, there's absolutely nothing stopping the moving out temporarily. Why would they? This is what I thought they would have done with Seattle. I thought Phoenix was maybe going to go to Seattle 2 to 3 years. Then they do the expansion. They move back to Phoenix, and the expansion sets up in Seattle because you test the market. But then it obviously didn't happen because that would have given them time to build the arena and have everything ready to go. It was Hartford did it with Quebec. Quebec went to Hartford for a while and then went back, I think, after the whole World Hockey merge thing. There's a whole kerfuffle.
I think it's important to remember here, though, that the way these articles go at the moment, it's like, per Arizona Coyotes, like they're not innocent in this story at all.
Nobody is.
Like they're in this predicament because they didn't pay their taxes, or they didn't pay.
They didn't pay their rent.
They didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And am I right in saying that the arena in Tempe really wasn't that old to start with?
No, it was. I mean, it was still. It was still. It was
quality
It was
arena.
only as old as the
Arena.
franchise, and the franchise isn't that old.
So they're not innocent here.
Nope.
No, they're not. It's a mess, and guaranteed we'll probably have the same arguments when we come back next season and start talking about this.
Oh, definitely. With what the Coyotes have on Gary Bettman, we'll be talking about it for a long time. Okay, I think that's everything from period 2, and I think we can move on to period 3.
Period 3 is our general Knocky News.
Knocky news.
Sing it with me. Knocky News is where we talk about anything and everything else in the world of hockey that doesn't fit neatly into either period 1 or period 2. This time around we've only got one story, but it is an absolute belter. Marty, you've put this down. The Belfast Giants are going to host a very special game in the middle of April.
Correct. I think on our last recording, if I'm right in saying, Dave, I think the teaser for this was put out,
Yes.
which kind of had us questioning and wondering what was going on. I think we kind of knew that it was going to be Ukraine themed in some way, because obviously we had the blue and yellow colors, and we knew there was something kind of something coming. We weren't sure if it was going to be like maybe someone's testimony and they were going to raise money for a Ukrainian charity. We didn't really know, but what has now been made clear, and what we do now know, is that the Belfast Giants will be hosting a all-star lineup on Wednesday the 19th of April at the SSE Arena, and it'll be the Belfast Giants versus the Near Pro Kherson, which are a Ukrainian team, the Ukrainian national championship side. The two teams will face off in aid of charities in the charity Ukrainian Hockey Dream, which is part of the Ice Hockey Federation of Ukraine's Hockey Cant Stop tour. The whole idea of it is that the the two teams will come together for a one-off international themed game, and all money and all proceeds will be going to the charity. So everything from the ticket sales to the on at night, I think during the night there'll be raffles. There'll be shut off the back probably as well. There is currently a raffle for a Belfast, which is causing a bit of controversy, which I've noticed tonight online. The Belfast Giants have put up, the Belfast Giants official supporters club have put up a one-off Boston Bruins jersey signed by the Boston Bruins team that visited the Belfast Giants in 2010. That is currently up for raffle as well, and all proceeds from that will also be going to this Ukrainian charity. What has been interesting is that obviously the Belfast Giants have been drip feeding the lineup for the Belfast Giants All-Star team. So far we have the likes of Johnny Boxhill coming back. We have some players who are already here. So we have the likes of David Goodwin. We have Steve Saviano returning to the team. We have Jeff Baum. We have Darryl Lloyd returning to the team alongside. We also have an announcement that Kiefer's going to be playing on this game. So I'm going to imagine we're going to have a Kiefer, Garside and a Lloyd line at some point, which is going to be beautiful.
Well.
Garside has been announced.
Wrecking ball line.
JJ Pickenich has been announced.
Someone's gonna have to remind them that this is a charity game.
Exactly. JJ Pickenich has been announced as coming back. George Awada is going to skate on the night.
Is he skating?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, that's what's happening. He's
Triple H is going to be skating.
Triple H is skating. Mark Garside, as we already said. Swinney is coming back. He's been announced as well. I mean, some great names. If not for anything, it'd be great to come along to the game just to see some of these iconic Belfast Giants players who we haven't seen in a while, and there's still more to be announced. Guys, I mean, what's your thought? I mean, it's obviously it's a great charity, it's a great cause. Excited? What do you think, Dave?
I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's an amazing way to leverage sport, especially for Kherson, considering everything that's currently going on in Ukraine. Kherson is one of the most contested regions of this conflict, and they have had so many families displaced that anything that can be raised to help any of the families in any way in that area is great. And I think as an opportunity to look back at some of the Giants' best, it's going to be phenomenal. Some of these names are like, I can remember we were talking about it on the way home from the Giants League winning match about Steve Saviano. I was like, I loved him watching him play. He was unreal, so fast and just so much energy. Darryl Lloyd, you can't go wrong with Darryl Lloyd. Like after his appearance in Goon, you can't not look away.
Exactly.
It's gonna be phenomenal.
And we're only talking 2 weeks away.
2 weeks away.
Yep.
So it's obviously after
the tickets are up.
Yep, tickets are on sale.
To be honest, I know we're going to talk about it, but they've still got playoffs to do. If I'm touching wood here, right? Okay, if they do the treble, the guys who are currently on the team might still be drunk, so this could end up like the playoff third place game or the Dundee Giants after the league game.
Why did you say that?
Darryl Lloyd and Big George might actually be the best skaters on the ice that night.
As I say, I mean, John, Dave's obviously touched upon it, some great names coming back and everything else, and it's a worthy cause, and, obviously, everything that's going forward. But I mean, this is significant because obviously the story here as well is, we have a Ukrainian team coming into play because obviously we know how much hockey means to people. We've seen stories throughout this year, we've had young guys, young players. I think it was a story out recently where I think they had, was it in Glasgow? I think they brought along a couple of young Ukrainian boys who were hockey fans who came along in a couple of the games and were playing with the junior teams and stuff. And I think it's another great night just where kind of a game of support and also obviously just how important hockey is for people in people's lives.
It's great when you consider sort of what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is raise money, and it will be used to support. They say up to 7,500 young players, professionals, coaches, and staff members to continue playing the game of hockey during what is an incredibly trying time, especially when you consider that 60% of young hockey players in Ukraine have been forced to abandon their homes and relocate away from either their own homes or actually to flee Ukraine entirely. and the situation in Ukraine, when hopefully everything is over and they can go back home again. At this point, it's estimated that around 40% of the ice plants, the rinks in Ukraine, have either been destroyed or seized, and are likely in no fit state to host hockey again. So this is massively important as well. It's not all about hockey. It's about maintaining a sense of normality in what is completely abnormal for all these people, to keep something as, and let's be honest, something as small as hockey, to keep that in their lives and make things a little bit normal is a massive thing to do. And from a personal perspective, I really hope there's a webcast.
Yep.
Can someone reach out to Boomerang Corner and ask them to tweet out all of the chants again? Like, can you remember all of the chants for all of these players?
Quite a few.
Can you go through them?
Quite a few. I would say there's quite a few, and they've been doing a couple of. I think they have been kind of doing a couple of some of them. I heard the Darrell Lloyd one being sung recently, and I heard the George Waddle one obviously quite regularly, because obviously George is obviously on the bench at the moment. But I would know the Steve Saviano ones and a couple of others, so it'd be good. Obviously we've got Ginger Jesus as well coming back, so it'd be good. It'd be good. Can't wait. But yes, if you haven't done so already, get your tickets in for that. I'm sure it's going to be a great night of hockey, but also more importantly, see some of those Giants players reskating, but also more importantly, obviously giving to a really worthy charity, I guess, as well, which is the main story here. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we will see some of you there.
Yep. That is it for Hockey News. Only one story, but one incredibly important story. And Marty, that then brings us on to overtime.
It does indeed. So our overtime segment is just anything else where if we've had any questions being put to us from social media, or if there's any other stories making the rounds or anything else we want to have a quick chat about before we finish off our episode. It would be remiss of us to not talk about this before the end of this episode, because the next time we record will be our 100th episode, and that will be post-playoffs. We're on episode 99 today, and our next episode will be episode 100, which is fitting because it will be just after our playoff weekend away. So, guys, we are heading off to the playoffs just over a week's time now. So it's literally this day next week will be our sleep. We'll be all heading to bed, excited for our early morning start on the Friday morning. Heading to the airport for us, guys. John, I know you're getting the train later in the day and you're coming down to meet us in Nottingham. But the Final Four weekend is upon us next weekend. But before we get to the Final Four weekend, we do have all important games this coming weekend, which we do need to chat about. So the playoffs, obviously with the league finishing this past weekend, it has put together what our playoff quarter-final matches will look like, and that will take the form of the Belfast Giants will face off against the Glasgow Clan, the Coventry Blaze will face off against the Cardiff Devils, the Nottingham Panthers will face off against the Guildford Flames, the Sheffield Steelers will face off against the Manchester Storm. I know I didn't do that in order, but I'm just reading it from the basis on what the matches are following. So guys, I guess the first question to put to you is again, obviously we're Belfast Giants fans, so we're just going to put Belfast Giants through to the playoff final weekend. But no, we can't. Let's be 100% serious. It's two games. We're going up against Glasgow. We can't take it for granted, because we know what happens when you take a team for granted. We've seen that with Sheffield this year with the Fife Flyers, so we know we can't take a team for granted. Let's go around. I want to get your thoughts. The first question that's been put to us is Final Four weekend predictions. Who makes the final? Dave, let's go to you first. Who are our Final Four teams for the Final Four weekend?
So obviously, I have to say the Giants are going to get there to the final weekend, mainly just because we haven't lost to the Clan this season, as far as I'm aware, unless I'm missing something. And I think this team, the Giants team, will just be too strong for them. And I hope I'll put more of my heart in my sleeve. Guildford. Don't think I need to say any more on that one. I don't think Nottingham really need I don't think they've got a snowball's chance, but how often am I right? The next two are a lot more tricky. Manchester have pulled out some amazing performances, but I think it's going to be Sheffield. But I do think it's going to be tight. I don't think it's going to be as big a blowout as some of the Sheffield fans think it will be. And I think Coventry will beat the Devils. Coventry have become a serious force post-Christmas. They are an absolute beast of a team. And Danny Stewart has that team drilled to the inch of its life.
Yeah. Okay. No, Dave, I'm gonna echo what you say. My exact predictions are exactly the same: Giants, Guildford, Steelers, and Coventry. John, do you have any different?
No, I don't have it any different. The only rationale I would change is why I would pick the Blaze, because they are a proven postseason team. They are they're a playoff team. They continue to push teams right the way through these final 4 games of the season, and playoffs is theirs. Danny Stewart has won how many playoffs at this point? Like as a coach, the Blaze are thereabouts all the time. The Steelers are always a force when it comes to playoffs as well. They do tend to be built around that. Those knockout games. Take away the Challenge Cup this year. They do tend to perform quite well in those knockout games. Guildford, absolute force this season. Absolutely brilliant. I've said it earlier in the podcast. I think pound for pound on spend, they have punched way above their weight again this season, and they've done it for the last 2 seasons. Probably 3 actually, when you take into account their Challenge Cup runs that they've had over the last few seasons. But I absolutely wouldn't change any rationale behind the Belfast Giants. They are the best team in the league this season.
Aaron, last but not least, I mean, do you have any other thoughts? I mean, would you have the same prediction, or do you have any?
The only ones I'm changing is not the Steelers, the Devils.
Devils for Coventry. Okay.
Devils for Coventry. I hear what you're saying about the Blaze, but I don't think that you can just push away.
Devils would be retaining as well, wouldn't they, for the playoffs if they managed to get it all the way to the end? They got it last year, didn't they?
The Devils win or Sheffield win it last year? Who played the Continental Cup this year? Cardiff. So Cardiff got it. Yeah, Cardiff.
So I don't think you can just push the Devils aside as easily as that. So I'm gonna go for the Devils. But for the other ones, yeah, completely agree. I think the next round is going to be very interesting, though. But let's get to that. But
we just asked the Steelers who's going to play in the next round. Absolute clowns. I've never, honestly, it was only as funny because I've never seen the league jump to correct something on social media so quickly. So to be honest, see if I see him at playoffs next weekend, I will shake Luke Fisher's hand just for that one tweet, because that was absolute gold, and the Steelers deserve finally to be hauled over the coals for stupid tweets. They continually get away with it, and they don't even understand the competition that they're playing in. Idiots.
I mean, it was comical. It was comical, and I know what they're trying to say. They're trying to say, obviously, top seeding, blah 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 blah, plays such and such and such and such.
But they didn't even pay attention.
They didn't. They didn't, because as the Elite League came out and clearly stated, they were like, no, but it all gets reset on the month. You know, it all gets reset.
It's still top remaining seed plays lowest remaining seed, and the other 2 play each other in the second game.
So
you're a bunch of idiots.
But yeah, so it'll be an interesting weekend. We're excited about that weekend. We cannot wait for that weekend. We were already talking. We've already got stuff going on in our chats. We've got I mean,
listen. You say that our next recording is the 100th. Who's coming to chat to us? Look, to be honest, it's going to be me wandering around, offering a microphone to random people and saying, do you want to come and chat to us? So if you do see us, if you see these jerseys knocking about Nottingham, come and chat to us, because I'll be knocking around with these.
I think you might be the only one in the Door 14 jersey. I've only got hand luggage, and I can only bring one jersey with me, and it has to be a Giants one.
No, you can wear one and tie one around your waist. What the hell are you going to wear to the third place game?
But I also have to wear a hoodie as well as I'll try to figure it out.
Tie around your waist.
So the next question I have before we finish off in our overtime segment, and it's about this, obviously the playoff weekend, because obviously it's coming up and we're all excited about it. The first question was asked for this, and Mark asked these questions. So thanks, Mark, for these questions. I've already predicted the answers to these questions. So Mark, we'll see how close I got to what my answers were to you already.
Are we only doing first round?
Yeah, well, we don't know. Who do you think's going to make? Who do you think's going to make the final? Again, I don't really,
Giants and whoever.
Giants and whoever. So, and I don't. If I'm going to be 100% correct, I don't know who's playing who in that final weekend, in that Saturday games, those semi-final games. I don't know who the Giants are going to be playing. I don't know if they're playing Sheffield. I don't know if they're playing Cardiff. Or Coventry. I don't know. I don't know the seeding myself. I don't know. I'm not going to be 100% honest. I don't know because of the seeding. I don't know who's playing who yet. I think we won't know
None
that
of us
until,
do, because we still have
we don't know
quarterfinals to
until,
play. It doesn't
exactly.
matter. The Giants are going to win. The Giants are going to win. Grand Slam, baby.
So we can't guess who's going to make the exact final because we obviously need to know who's going to be. Yeah. Anyway, the question was, for those of you who have been, and I think at this point we've all been to playoff final weekend. What is your previous playoff? What is your favorite memory from a previous playoff final weekend? Dave, let's go with you first.
That goal. Evan Chevrolet. That goal.
Yep.
To be fair, and also you crying at the same point, but yeah, that goal.
Excuse me, I was not crying. I was hyperventilating and couldn't breathe and had to sit down at the back of the arena. I literally was just like, I can't breathe. I'm dizzy. I'm gonna fall. Yeah, the whole thing.
So did you guess that one?
I guessed that. That's one. Yep. There we go. I guessed that answer already. Aaron, kind of same to you. I know you've been a couple of playoff final weekends, but what's your favorite memory off or on ice?
Well, of course, the biggest one that I always go to is Dave's Stag Do weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't win that year.
Nope.
But one memory that I always like, and one team that's always got a soft spot in my head is, and I can't remember their name.
Hey!
I love these guys. You know those guys. Those guys.
You know those guys. That Scottish team. That
Scottish
team, the Glasgow Clan. It's because they weren't the Glasgow Clan back then.
Still not. To be fair, they're still not the Glasgow.
I remember we were getting like Trump. We were like basically all of the Giants fans were just quiet. Like it was a tough old game. And I remember the Brayhead clan getting up and cheering for the Giants and cheering us on. And I from that point, I'm always a big fan of that team that I can't remember the name of.
Those guys, massive fan.
Those Scottish guys, I'm always big. I just remember them cheering us on and trying to get the Belfast fans going again. Do you know, Marty? You're looking at me like a
No, I do.
What? Do you not remember that?
I do remember. I was really hungover or really drunk at the Stag weekend. But I do remember it. No, I do remember it. I do, and it's funny because I got part of the answer right because I said you'd mentioned it as Dave's Stag weekend. I did say it was Dave's Stag weekend you were talking about, but I thought it was going to be something completely different.
Go for it. What did you think?
I thought you were going to talk about the after the first night the first night of games in bunkers, meeting the gang, our friends from America, and just the crazy night we had that night, which was just a fun night. I thought you were going to talk about
I didn't want it to be all just my best memories were just drinking and partying. I wanted to mention hockey. One thing.
It's playoff final weekend. It's mostly about drinking and partying. John, coming to you. What's your favorite memory?
Do you know, I could go with waking up on the morning after the first night and realising that I'd brought half a tub of chicken wings back to the hotel with me and could have them for breakfast. But I'm not going to go with that because clearly, and I'm pretty sure you're going to have guessed this one, is on the final day of playoffs, I think we randomly went to the third place game because we basically had nowhere better to be. And I ended up finding that I was on the big screen because I had sent a selfie the night before because the theme for those playoffs had been whose jersey could you hang the most clothes pegs off before they noticed. And that night, the night of the first games, Aaron Murphy was down in bunkers, and I clearly was the only person with the guts who managed to get a clothes peg on his suit jacket, and then took a selfie behind him with I think it was like a pink clothes peg was on the back of his suit jacket, and I think I put something along the lines of I pegged Aaron Murphy last night. No, the Elite League didn't put the caption on, but they put the photo on the big screen.
Oh,
Did you guess that one?
good memory. No, I didn't.
Is that the title of this podcast?
No, it's not. But it should be now.
Here, I still want my media accreditation for next weekend, so
that's-
no, that's not the title.
That's fantastic. That's brilliant. My memory, I would say, it
Oh,
probably
can
goes...
I try and guess yours?
Sure, go ahead.
Ooh.
Was it you down in the bottle of Lambrini?
That was definitely not a highlight of that week. That certain playoff final weekend.
See, before you give yours, what did you guess mine was?
To be honest, I didn't guess yours. I couldn't figure out what yours would be.
Fair.
Sorry, John. I kind of figured out Dave and John Irons because I thought they were quite easy, but yeah, I didn't get yours.
Did pegging the guy?
Didn't even come into my mind, but yeah, that's a really good example. No, the Lambrini incident was not. Is definitely not. That
Was it getting into the fight with Diane after she found out you drank it?
No, she was no. She was annoyed because someone had drank her vodka, which wasn't me.
I wonder who that was.
I think that was you. Anyway, Diane, apologies. Yeah, no, my memory is an ice memory, and it's exactly the same as yours, Dave. It's that because we've only seen it happen that once when we've been there, where we've seen a playoff championship being won, and it was a mix of, I think my memory is a mix of that experience of that happening and just the sheer delight and the sheer excitement of everything and cheering and screaming of everything that happened there, nearly passing out in the stands because I kind of forgot to breathe, and I think I nearly blacked out because I forgot to breathe, and then just that whole Sunday night then, and I know the one thing I remember most about it vividly is the fact that like we had the early red eye flight out of Nottingham the next morning. Like the flight was supposed to be.
It was the only one or something we could get. Wasn't
yeah, it was at 6 o'clock or something, 6:10, 6:15 in the morning, flying into Belfast from Nottingham, on Ryanair, and we were just like, you know what, we were kind of like drinking away in bunkers, celebrating our win and everything else. The team came and we were, you know, obviously having fun and stuff and drinking away, and had the big flag and everything was out, and we were just completely going nuts. And I remember just at one point looking at the watch and thinking, 3 hours to get to the airport. It's all right. Still got time. It's okay.
So that's when the sex shop burnt down, wasn't it?
Yes. Isn't it? Yeah, it was, yeah. It was actually, yeah. Oh, fun times, fun memories. Okay, we're kind of getting long in this episode. We've got one more question to do before we finish off. So the last question is, having that in mind, your previous playoff final weekend experiences and memories, what about this particular year are you looking forward to the most?
I think this is our first year, all four of us going.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Yes.
I'd have
I
to
would
agree,
say,
yeah.
Sentimental and as soppy as it sounds, I think it is the fact that like it's the first time the four of us will have been together for an away game, especially for a playoff final weekend, because we've never done playoff finals together, but also it's the first time we've been together as a proper away game since Vegas, prior to lockdown and prior to COVID and everything else. And I think I know it sounds soppy and sentimental, but I think that's one of the big things I'm looking forward to the most, is just hanging out with you three for that full weekend, and just seeing what banter we get up to, some what banter comes out of it, and see what kind of, this podcast kind of came from those such experiences. I look forward to next weekend and just hanging out with you guys, and obviously the hockey is obviously the bonus.
Seeing friends and making new friends.
Yeah,
sentimental.
And I promise not to jump into any bushes.
Well, you're a bit older for that now. But let's see what happens when you.
I don't think I could survive that these days.
Well, let's see what happens after you've had a certain number of.
Let's go back and see if we can find that same bush.
I know exactly what that bush is, so we'll walk past it and see what happens.
I'm just asking as well, because I know it was Mark who asked those questions. I'm surprised that there wasn't an extra question in there, and it was Dave, what time's the table booked?
I have to change it now?
No, actually, we'll talk about it after. We'll talk about it off camera, because it's fine. We don't need to change it. I'll explain.
Did you phone up and confirm it, though?
No, I did not.
I have the booking confirmation.
Relying on IT things,
I do have the booking confirmation, so hopefully Anyway, that's a story for off the podcast. Guys, with that, I think we'll bring this episode to an end. It has been a great episode, getting you all back on, having a chat with all four of us. It's definitely been refreshing. It's been great to have you on. So thank you very much. Next episode will be our 100th episode. It will be post playoffs. So hopefully we won't be too broken, and we will bring you our 100th episode in our next time around. With that, you can listen to the 99 other episodes, well, 98 other episodes, because there's one missing, the missing episode.
So we found it.
No, there's one episode still missing. Still one missing. So we will. But you can listen to all the other episodes. You can check out the content and everything else on our website, door14hockey.com. Get involved. Tell us your thoughts and your memories of playoff finals weekends past. Let us know what you're looking forward to this weekend, this playoff weekend coming. And also, as John said, if you are up for a chat and you would be happy to have just a brief chat with us about anything and everything about your own team, about how the seasons went for your team, or just want to chat about hockey, give us a shout. Let us know on social media, or just give us a shout on the day if you see one of us around. We would love to chat to you, and you can do that by checking in with us on all our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and also Twitter at door14hockey. Guys, with that, last thing to say is obviously for your podcast provider of choice, if you can, don't forget to visit a like, thumbs up, subscriptions, notifications, all that sort of stuff. Leave us a review if you can. It really does help, and it kind of just boosts listenership. So we thank you for anybody who has done that to date. With that, we will sign off for this week. I'm Marty.
I'm Dave.
I'm John.
I'm Aaron.
Have a great week.